Will,
Yes.
have we seen the last of Phil Jackson in the NBA?
We have seen the last of Phil Jackson as a decision maker, as a person with a presence on an everyday basis in the NBA, but we haven't seen the last in one respect. I'm going to tell you that his fingerprints will have a lasting imprint, not just on the NBA, but in the New York Knicks, and in a positive way, not in a negative way. Let me lay that out for you real quick, John. Here's the thing. We're not going to see him again in a front office because I think that the world is run by lemmings. I think that people react to things emotionally. You know, it's funny, everybody listens to what I have to say on this Phil Jackson thing, and because it's so obvious to them, because there's so much unanimous disagreement, that if you possibly disagree with that, well, you must be looking for some contrarian, attention-seeking take. No. What I think is that the crowd you have found yourself in, most of the time holding pitchforks, is a sea of ignorance. That's what I think. And yeah, granted, I could run myself into an intellectual cul-de-sac by just reacting to the mob, but most of the time I'm going to be right. And that mob's going to run the NBA. It ran the New York Knicks. I mean, James Dolan has abdicated all authority of running one of the premier franchises in the NBA, not to Phil Jackson, probably not even that much to Carmelo Anthony, but to the man on the street, to the protest, to the social media outrage. And guess where that will lead you? So no, Phil Jackson's not going to find another job because most people think like Dolan. He's just a hyper example of it, but most people think like Dolan. No one can stand on their own independently and go, what's the real problem here? That, number one. Number two, you will see Phil in one way. Mobs over the long run are wrong. And Phil has built a core of Porzingis, Hernan Gomez, and Ntilikina. That's something. And in 3 or 4 years' time, that's going to be something for the New York Knicks. I'm not saying it's going to win a championship, but that's going to take them into the playoffs. That's going to make them a team they can build around. And everyone will look back on it and give a big round of applause to whoever it is now follows Phil. And it will be Phil's doing. Just like everybody is doing for Brian Colangelo today for everything Sam Hinkie built with the Philadelphia 76ers. Phil will never get credit. The crowd will always hate you. But you can just, I guess, try to go to bed at night knowing you were right.
You know, it's the same thing happened with Isaiah Thomas. They wanted him literally dragged out on the street and destroyed. But he had literally drafted 4 guys who wound up being all-stars in this league. It just didn't work together at the same time. I think the first big mistake when Phil got in was to let Woodson go. Coach Woodson had literally done a good job. Phil Jackson comes in, is supposed to be better, and Phil cuts out Woodson. Now everybody is sitting, falling back. I think everybody, it's a time when they have to step down. There's an athlete that he has to step down. I know Brett Favre said he didn't want to do it, and he did. Magic Johnson left and came back. Michael Jordan didn't know when it was time. Great, great people who have won championships love the taste of that champion drug. The one thing I think Phil would be great at and can do now, because I have to admit, the way we are used to doing things is not the way to do it anymore. That sit down, have a conversation man to man, no, they rather Skype. They pick up the phone and call me, nah, I'll text you and you can understand and read through the text and know what I'm meaning. Phil will show back up because when he gets back out to Los Angeles, he will be able to sit by the ocean, breathe, see what happened. $60 million richer, besides the 13% state tax that he didn't have to pay, 11% here. And he'll probably sit with Jeannie, and he'll be able to sit back and give his ideas like Jerry West is doing.
Officially or unofficially?
I think it's unofficial, because I think Magic Johnson is taking completely all the air out of the room, but he wouldn't mind hearing from Phil Jackson quietly, not through the paper, not through somebody else. If he happens to catch him and say, this is what I noticed from my POV, or if Magic asked the question. But I think Phil being back in the Laker mentality, her brother is gone, Jimmy Buss is gone, and you have Mitch Kupchak, who is no longer there. So I think Phil will feel even, because Magic doesn't have a problem with him, because he's a winner. And I think that Phil will be back with the Lakers helping them rebuild.
Phil Jackson back with the Lakers, whispering in the ear to leave some imprint on the future of the Los Angeles Lakers.
Because Brian Shaw is associate head coach,
Yeah.
Walton is sitting there. They respect. They understand. They know exactly how we got to it.
Some people could argue that that was the plan all along, and that, to Stephen A's point, that he didn't perform in this role with the Knicks so he can get paid and go to the Lakers eventually.
You know, that's a conspiracy theory.
I know, I'm just throwing that out there.
That's just nonsensical conspiracy theory that will get some traction because people like to believe that he's fleecing them for $60 million. It's nonsense, unequivocal and utter nonsense.
If we would have had Steve Kerr, I'm telling you. And everyone said, well, we don't know. We do. We do know.
But you could
what
also say if Kevin Durant didn't go to the Warriors, you can't say that big monumental move is just going to change. It's obvious.
But they won the championship without Kevin Durant 2 years before that. So it's not
Stephen
that.
A. himself said the names. I'm going to start with yours. John Salley, Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal, Michael Jordan. You want to go down the Mount Rushmore of people that respect and think Phil Jackson can lead a franchise. I will take my list over yours, Stephen A. Smith. I will take my list. Now, I'm not saying he was perfect, and I'm not saying he even did a great or a good job, but I'm not going to sit here today and act like he's the problem with the New York Knicks. That will lead you to the same place where you are today.